Hi, my name is Gabe Suarez. Welcome to Kalashnikov rifle gunfighting. In this video, we're going to examine the AK-47 from a tactical perspective, and we're also going to teach you how to fight with it. It's important that everybody become familiar with this weapon. If for nothing else, there's so many of them. If you were to take every FN-FAL that was ever made, every M16 that was ever made, every HK weapon or setme that was ever made, and every Uzi that was ever made, and you added them up, you would still not have the same number of rifles as AK-47s that have been made. These are very prolific. They're all over the world. They come in all different types and calibers and whatnot. So even if you don't like it, even if you're one of the people that hate this rifle, it behooves you to become familiar with it because the chances of you coming across it are very high. Personally, I prefer this to the other weapons that I mentioned. The AK series of rifles is probably one of the most maligned small arms in the world. Everybody has something bad to say about it. They'll say things like, well, it's got sharp edges and it's uncomfortable to use and so on and so forth. Not only has this been used by a lot of militaries for years, it's been used by special operations people like the Russian Spetsnaz, the Finnish Defense Forces, even the Israelis. Some of our contractors right now are using this. So if you find this uncomfortable and you find the sharp edges uncomfortable, maybe you need to just get a little tougher. All right. Other things that they say about the rifle, they'll say bad things about the sights. Oh, the sights are horrible. You can't use them, and so on and so forth. Right at about the end of World War II, with the start of the entire Sturmgewehr or assault rifle concept with the Germans, it was realized that small arms combat between riflemen, infantry combat, urban combat, let's say, took place at relatively close ranges, inside 100, maybe 200 yards. For those distances, sights like this work just fine. They're the same type of sight picture that you see on your pistols. So for close quarter battle, you've got one sight picture to learn for pistols or rifle. So I think this is very much an advantage. On top of that, they're very rugged sights. Something else that they'll discuss a lot as a detriment of this weapon system is the bolt handle. Now, many small arms in the world are using this same type of bolt handle, but you never hear anything bad about those. Some examples: the M1 Garand uses a very similar bolt handle. In fact, you could say it's almost identical. Same thing with the M14, the Mini 14, the SIG 550, even the M1 carbine. Nobody ever says that those are uncomfortable to use or a detriment to the weapon. So forget it when you hear that sort of thing. Another issue that you hear many times is the magazine. They say that the manipulation of the magazine is uncomfortable and so on and so forth. Well, again, this mechanism to lock the magazine in place is evident in many of the small arms. The FAL uses a very similar one, the M14, and so on. So again, it's something that you have to learn, and once you do, you'll find that it's not that much of a disadvantage, if at all. Something else that you'll hear is that the trigger is too heavy and too uncomfortable. You can say the same thing about any stock military weapon. With the addition of an additional trigger pack or a trip to the gunsmith, you can clean this up very nicely, just as many gunsmiths do with the M14 system or the M1 Garand system. So this is not that big of a deal. Oftentimes you'll hear also that these stocks are too short for American shooters. Well, if the type of shooting that you want to do is bullseye shooting out at long distance, Camp Perry type stuff from a very bladed posture, maybe it is too short. But if your intent is to shoot in CQB type environments, the stock length is just about perfect. If you'll notice on the news, many of our fighting men right now that are defending our freedom in the Middle East, they're using the M4 system, and they run their M4s with the stock at its most compressed length so that they can maneuver in the CQB environment. This already comes with a short stock, so we don't need to worry about that. This is an advantage, not a disadvantage. The AK is probably one of the most rugged, if not the most rugged small arm that was ever made. You have to work long and hard to make this thing break. It's very simple to use, and we're going to show you that in this video. An example of how rugged this AK is. You can even do push-ups on the magazine. I'm being supported solely by the magazine. Try to do that with your M4. Traditionally, AKs come in two different calibers, although there are some coming out now in 223. The Comblock AKs come in either 545 by 39 or 762 by 39. While the 545 by 39 has some attractive characteristics, there are no American ammunition companies that are making this caliber at this time, and the majority of rifles that you're going to come across with the AK series are going to come in the 762 by 39. Basically, without getting into a lot of ballistics, think of it as a 30-30 in a magazine-fed rifle. That's basically what you're looking at. It's a 30 caliber round, about 120, 122, 123 grain bullet, traveling about 2,300 feet per second, give or take. Very interesting ballistics for short range. It tends to penetrate through things that smaller calibers will not, so it's very attractive for close quarter problems. Now with the 762 by 39, there's two basic magazines that we're going to talk about. You have the metal Eastern European magazines, and you have the newer polymer versions. There may be some other magazine types out there. Listen, with the availability of these, don't bother with the other ones. You can get a lot of metal Eastern European magazines for quite a low price still, and they work great. My choice, however, are these Bulgarian polymer magazines. They work great. They're very strong. We've run these over with cars. We've thrown them across the range. The only thing we haven't done is shoot them. But they work great. They're very, very strong. They're much lighter than this, and it's my choice for the AK magazine. One of the greatest advantages of the AK system is that it's simple. It's so simple that an illiterate third world caveman could use this and maintain it and take over a country with it if he wants to. You look at an M4 rifle, for example. It's got 6 or 7 different controls on it. This only has 4. Think about it. You have the safety. It either goes down for fire or it goes up for safe. Very simple. The trigger, we don't need to really talk about this, do we? Anybody that's been around firearms knows what this is for. All right. The bolt handle, it goes back, load, and it goes forward almost by itself. Okay. Again, very, very simple. The magazine comes out, the magazine goes back in. There's a little lever here that you can push to disengage the magazine, to bring it out, and to put it back. That's it. You understand these controls, you understand the AK system. You just learn in 5 minutes what takes most other weapon systems maybe a couple of hours to learn. Simple. Simple is better in a fight. One of the advantages of the AK system is that you can add different types of stocks. Here we have a Polish underfolder. It closes to a very compact design. For some people, the underfolder is a little bit uncomfortable because it's metal and it's sometimes a little harsh on the face. I can understand that. I run this underfolder quite a bit. It's just something that you have to get used to. Another option, there are wire folders like this. This particular one is Romanian. There were also some East German models that were made this very same way. We have a Polish version of that. I find these very comfortable to shoot. They make for a very compact rifle, but very easy to close and open, as you see. The most comfortable stocks of all are the ones that come on the AK-100 series. There are some American stocks made like this. You can see it folds very compact. It opens very easily. This is more of think of it as a fixed stock that you can also fold. It's very comfortable to shoot. It's almost, like I said, a fixed stock completely. Now, the nice thing about the folding stocks is it makes for a very compact rifle. Compact rifle is very easy to store. a compact rifle can fit into compartments where one would not normally think that a rifle belongs in there. For example, it doesn't look very tactical, but this is my rifle case. As you can see, I can bring this out very quickly. I can carry it in a very compact environment without giving away the show. Okay, how do you store your AK? Well, there's a couple of different ways. We've codified them to keep it simple, all right? Number one, armory storage. Let's say you're going to keep your AK in the closet or in your gun safe or whatever. Not so much with the idea of grabbing it and going and fighting with it, but, you know, let's say you have a bunch of AKs and you just need a safe place to put this. All right, armory storage. Weapon unloaded, no magazine, safety on, take it, put it in the closet, perfectly safe, all right? Another type of ready would be ready storage. Let's say you have this rifle, but you know, you might need to grab it and load it and go shoot some bad guy or somebody with it. Well, you want to put a magazine in it, a loaded magazine, leave the safety on, leave the chamber empty. Okay. Fighting mode. Safety would be off. You load the rifle, you put the safety back on. It's what the 1911 crowd would say cocked and locked, for example. All right. Combat mode. You're being shot at, you're fighting. Nothing changes except the safety comes off. All right. We found that maintaining these different modes of storage, these different levels of thinking with the AK facilitated safe use, and it will help you with your study of the AK. We captured this man. He works for us now. Just kidding. This is my buddy Mark Kwan, student and one of our staff instructors. He's going to show us how you do a status check or a chamber check of the AK. Again, it's very simple. There's been a lot of discussion about checking the AK. You take the magazine out, you look at the round. If it moves over, it does it. Simple. Simple is better. Think of what you would need to do if you were scared to death and your hands were shaking. This is how you do it with the AK. This is how a caveman would do it. He pulls back the bolt and he looks. And he also feels for the round. Now notice, go ahead and pull the bolt back again, Mark. The barrel extends into the receiver. And at first touch, if we're working in low light, that may feel like it's a round. So what Mark is going to do is he's going to feel for that extension first and then feel back into the chamber for the presence or absence of an actual cartridge. Okay? Right up in there. Once he gets the information that he needs, he can let go of the bolt and let it go back into battery. Very simple. All right. Now the loading and unloading, again, we don't want to make a big deal out of this, but it's important that you have a process of doing this maneuver manipulation so that you always do it the same way and you're always sure of doing it correctly. All right. All loading and unloading is going to begin and end with a chamber check. So for example, the loading process, he'll do a chamber check. All right, make sure of what he has, then he'll go ahead and load. Magazine goes in the weapon, and he runs the bolt. And then he'll do another chamber check to verify. Safety can remain off or can be re-engaged depending on the tactical situation. All right, unloading is the exact reverse. The first thing will be a chamber check. Okay. Now I want you to notice real quick that, Mark, go ahead and re-engage the safety. All right, he can do a chamber check with the safety engaged. All right, it's not mandatory, but it's certainly something you can take advantage of if you want to. All right, the unloading process, very simple. The magazine comes out. Now he will need to remove the safety in order to work the bolt. He'll work the bolt, the round will be ejected. He'll do another chamber check to verify, and the rifle's unloaded. Very simple process. We suggest you follow this when you're working with your AK. All right, guys, I'm going to talk about gun safety for a minute here. Listen, safety is important, but it's not the most important thing. If you can make yourself so safe that you are not combat efficient whatsoever. All right. If you want to be totally safe from any problem with firearms, you know what? Sell your gun. Go take up golf. All right. We have some guidelines that we use to make as sure as we can that we're not going to have any mishaps in training. Now, listen, I've read the Bible through at least half a dozen times, and there's no mention in there about gun safety, all right? So none of this stuff is written in stone. It's the work of man and therefore open to interpretation and revision as needed, all right? Often it's said, all guns are always loaded. Well, if I take this rifle, all right, and I take this magazine out, and I verify the magazine is unloaded, all right, and I run the bolt several times, dry press it, run the bolt again, dry press it, open the action. I show my students, I show the cameraman, I show you, I look myself, I close the action and press the trigger. If you tell me that this gun is loaded, you're insulting my intelligence and your own. All right? So rule number one for us is treat all guns as if they were loaded unless you have checked and two other independent people have checked and verified that it's empty. Now, why do we do that? We train all over the world. Here in the U.S., we're blessed with red guns and blue guns and purple guns and all kinds of plastic and rubber facsimiles of guns when we're doing CQB training or when we're doing force on force and when we're doing all of these non-range events, all right? You go down to South America, there ain't no blue guns down there. You go to Europe or Africa or some of these places, sorry. So you either not do that type of training or you do what we do here, which is we verify the condition, two other people verify it, and then you carry on. All right? Simple as that. Rule number two, they'll tell you, don't let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. Well, you know, number one, that's impossible to do. All right? Anytime that you carry a rifle with you, it's pointing somewhere. Somewhere over there, there might be an airplane flying or something. So, you know, the idea of never letting your muzzle cover something you're not willing to destroy is impossible to do. In rifle class, we carry these things on sling all day long. Sometimes it may cover your foot. Sometimes it may cover your knee. You know, the rifle's unsafe when it's on sling. You're being careful. Nothing's going to happen. This is the way rifles are used in combat environments. All right? What we say instead is, don't be careless with your gun muzzle. All right? Now somebody might ask, well, what does that mean? What's careless? Well, careless is like pornography. It's hard to describe, but you know it when you see it. All right? Waving your rifle around, you know, gesturing with it, hey, go get me a glass of water or something. That's being careless. Just be conscientious with where your muzzle is pointing. Everything will work out just fine. All right? Rule number three, they say keep your finger off the trigger till your sights are on the target. Very nice. It's got a rhythm to it. You could probably sing it to a guitar solo. Impossible to do, because if I'm shooting from close contact position, are my sights on the target? I have no bloody idea. I'm looking at the bad guy. All right? So what we say is keep your finger off the trigger until you've made a conscious decision to shoot. Very simple to remember. All right? Which brings us to the issue of the safety lever itself. All right? There's three safeties. We have a three-tier safety system. Number one, your brain housing group. You're paying attention to what's going on, and your brain is deciding, I'm going to shoot that man or I'm not going to shoot that man. When someone's trying to kill you, you're going to be paying attention. When you're training on the range, you should be paying attention. Safety number one is right here. Safety number two is your trigger finger. It is either on the trigger because you are intending to shoot, or it's at the natural limit of extension, as straight as it'll go. Okay? It doesn't go any straighter than this. One of two positions, either here or here. Simple to remember, just like operating the AK. All right? And the last one is the mechanical safety. You use this when you're going to relinquish control of the rifle to the sling or your pistol to the holster, as it were. But you don't go through a tactical environment monkeying with the safety like this. All right? The only place I've seen that done is here in the United States. No other place on earth do people mess around with the safety. So use it when you need to, remove it when you need to, and carry on. All right? And the last thing, they say, you know, be sure of your target and what's beyond it. Always a good idea. The implication is that if you have a questionable background that you're not going to shoot. All right? Don't think like that. All right? If there's a bad guy directly in front of me and he is going to kill me, and there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to kill me unless I shoot him, and there's, you know, other people in the background and stuff like that, you know, I'm going to do my best not to shoot them, but they should get out of the way, because I'm not going to not shoot because of a possibility of a possible risk. That would be unreasonable to ask anybody to do that. All right, so those are the safety rules we operate by. They're reasonable, they work well in fighting as well as on the range, and I suggest you adopt them as well. All right, let's talk about slings for a minute. There's a lot of material out there on slings. There's such complex slings out there that they need to send you a DVD to understand how to use a sling. This is what I use a sling for. I need a free hand. I put the rifle on my shoulder. In a minute, we're going to show you how to transition to a pistol. Again, very, very simple stuff. This is how I carry the rifle if I need to go for a walk or what have you. Now, I'm going to show you how to deploy from the slung position as well as how to go back to the slung position. It's very simple. You take your support hand, okay, which in my case is my left hand. I reach in and I grab the rifle like this, just inboard of the magazine, okay? Now from here, I lift the rifle straight up. It's pointing at where the target or the threat would be. I take my primary hand, my right hand, I reach underneath and I grab the pistol grip, okay? And from here, I bring the rifle up into my shoulder, disengaging the safety on the way up. Okay. Now you notice that the rifle didn't swing around like a windmill or anything like that. It doesn't need to. The way back is very simple. I take my support hand, I grab the rear sling swivel. I support the rifle by it and sling it back up on my shoulder. Okay. A little bit faster. Up and back. Remember that simple theme that we kept talking about? You see it right here with the sling. We're going to talk for a moment on how to zero the AK. You spent the money on an AK, you need to get one of these. It's an AK sight adjustment tool. All right, it's about the only tool you'll ever need for the AK, and you'll probably only need it once. The suggested procedure for zeroing these, this comes right out of the Russian manuals. All right, the design of the receiver you'll see here. There's a sliding scale, and then there's an area here that's elevated again, and the rear sight rests right on top of there. Okay. The suggested procedure, and it's what I follow on my rifles, is to take the rear sight slide and set it at 1. 1 is reminiscent of 100 yards or 100 meters. Okay. Then using this tool to adjust windage and elevation, you zero this rifle at 25 yards, 25 meters, let's say. Then you go back to 100 and you verify that you're dead on at 100. Then when you take this rear slide and you move it back to what is called the battle sight 0, which is the rearmost setting, you are in a situation where all you need to do is hold dead center of whatever target you want to hit. This is made for shooting bad guys, not bunnies or things like that. You will be within what we call minute of man, out to 300 meters or 328 yards, give or take, which is about the limit of the cartridge. Very simple. Think of these as fixed sights that you can adjust slightly. To get the best accuracy out of your AK, I find a lot of people want to put optics on them. I think that's a fine thing as long as the optic is as strong as a rifle. Most AK optics or optics that would be placed on an AK are just as strong as a rifle, so that's no problem. Let's take a look at some of the Russian optics first. There's a lot of them. They're all very good. They tend to be a lot less expensive than American-made optics. Most AKs come with a scope mount on the side of the receiver, and the scope mounts on the side, clamps down. It's very strong, repeatable 0 and everything. This hasn't really caught on with a lot of American shooters because you see it's a very high sight line. Now the advantage is that you can be looking through the optic at one moment, lower your cheek weld on the rifle, and you can be using the iron sights the next. So there is an advantage there. However, the disadvantage is you look at the bore line compared to the sight line, and quite a discrepancy there, and that's something you need to take into consideration when you're shooting at close range or from behind cover. But as you see, I can be using the optic one moment, dip my face down slightly, and can be using the iron sights the next without a lot of effort. All right. What I find that most of my students do is they'll do something like this. They'll mount an Ultimac gas tube on the rifle. This runs about, I don't know, 90, 100 bucks, something like that, and they'll put an aim point on it. Now, the nice thing about this is it's very light, very compact, very small, and you can be looking through the iron sights and still have co-witnessing with the scope and vice versa. So it's very advantageous, and you can see it's a very low mount, so you don't have the discrepancy that you have with the com-block optics. If you want to wring the best accuracy possible out of your AK and your ammunition, this is definitely the way to go. All right, I'm going to show you how to disassemble the AK. Those of you that hate cleaning your guns will really like this, okay? Number one, you push this rear retainer button. There's the top cover. It comes off. The recoil guide comes off. Bolt carrier and the bolt come apart. Your AK is disassembled, okay? Very simple. To put it back, goes back the same way. You notice I'm not really worried about getting sand or anything like that in the action. Okay, put it back, push it forward. This is the recoil spring. Goes back on board. Just shake the dust out of it. Don't worry about it too much. Top cover goes in. Rifle's ready to go. Very simple. Let's talk about ready positions. What is a ready position? The rifle's in your hands and you're expecting trouble. If you weren't expecting trouble, the rifle might be on a sling, or you might be carrying it in a little bit more of a casual manner. All right. Some of these ready positions, the safety is going to be off. Why? Because you're expecting trouble. If you weren't expecting trouble, you'd have the rifle in another type of attitude. First thing I want to talk about is a traditional low ready that's taught in a lot of rifle programs. Mark, go ahead and get into a low ready. Okay. Now, you notice the rifle's very low, okay? But go ahead and bring it up. Look at how long distance the rifle has to travel to get up on target. That's going to take some time. I don't favor low ready because there's other methods that do everything that low ready does and much better. All right? First, we have contact ready. Go ahead and point in like if you had a target downrange. All right. Lower the rifle slightly so you can look over the top. That's contact ready. Now look at this difference here. Go from contact ready to point. How much travel was that? Almost nothing. All right. Now the advantage of contact ready is Mark is already on target. If he hit an adversary downrange that he was concerned about and he needed to suddenly start shooting, he could very easily do so. All right. The other thing is, from the perspective of the bad guy, what does he see? All right. You know, if Mark wanted to cause him to run away or to give up or whatever the case was, this is very threatening, so it's very good. All right? Contact ready. This is the position that you would be in when you're challenging someone or when you're approaching a specific threat area that you're concerned about. Now, the only disadvantage is that the rifle is very far away from Mark's central core. The low ready has the same problem. So we have a close contact ready in which Mark brings the rifle under his right arm. I was going to say his strong arm, but like I said, we don't have a weak arm. Now, you notice the profile of the rifle changed by about a foot, okay? So Mark can use this ready position to negotiate some very close quarter problems. He can fire from here if he needs to, in a sort of an underarm assault position, or from here he can shoulder the rifle up to a full firing position very easily. All right, so we have close contact and we have contact ready, both of which are meant for approaching a specific danger area or a specific adversary. All right, the next ready position we're going to look at is Sul, S-U-L. S-U-L is Portuguese for south. There's a whole history that comes with that ready position. Very controversial, but you know, that's never worried me very much. With a pistol, Sul position looks like this. The advantages of it are that I can be facing the camera, I can turn in any direction I want without muzzling an innocent party. With the rifle, it looks like this. The butt is still in Mark's shoulder, the muzzle's kept down, his arm is touching his web gear. If he wasn't wearing any web gear, the hand would be touching his belt or the magazine would be touching his belt. Now Mark, go ahead and face the camera. All right, now you the viewer, you notice that if you were standing there, Mark could be facing you in a ready position. You're not endangered in any way because he's controlling the muzzle, it's pointing straight down. We use this for moving through tight areas, for checking the area around us after a shooting, for example, or moving through a crowd of people. It has a lot of advantages for weapon retention as well, and it's very fast to come up on target. You don't lose anything at all. Much better than low ready. Next ready position we're going to talk about is simply patrol ready. Some people call it Rhodesian ready. Other people have called it UK ready. If you look at photos of some of the soldiers, you know, in prior wars and everything, they need to carry their rifles with them all day long. It's very difficult to walk around all day in low ready or high ready or anything like that. So all of these positions, whatever they would be, eventually gravitate toward patrol ready, which is a very casual, relaxed manner of carrying the rifle. It's almost administrative in nature. It can be carried like this for a long period of time. If Mark was standing post here for a long period of time and he didn't have the opportunity to put the sling around his neck, this is how he would be handling his rifle. From here, it's very easy to go into the underarm assault. Go ahead and show him, Mark. Underarm assault. Locks right in. It's also very easy from patrol ready. Go ahead and go back to patrol ready to a shoulder fire position. All right, very good. The last one we're going to talk about is port arms. Port arms was taught in a lot of military schools up until about the era where the three-point sling started becoming popular. If I had a student and I gave him the directive that I wanted him to run from point A to point B as fast as possible without any regard for having to shoot a target on the way, he would probably be holding the rifle in some version of port arms automatically without any direction because it facilitates quick movement. Mark, go ahead and go to port arms. Basically the rifle up high like this. This is not a position to search from. It's not a position to challenge anyone from. The only advantage of this position is it allows Mark to move very quickly from point A to point B, such as we would be doing in a team drill or an Australian peel or something of that nature. It allows him to run with his rifle without it interfering with his ability to move. And from here, go ahead and face off in this direction. Very easily he can pop into underarm assault or into shoulder position. All right, and basically those are the ready positions we use. There's a couple of other positions that will work from more as administrative carry. Let's say I had the rifle in my hand like this. This is perfectly appropriate. You know, you try and do this in some shooting ranges, and certain people will take exception, but perfectly appropriate, perfectly acceptable. We just call it carrying at the balance. This is where the balance of the rifle is. You're carrying it at the balance. From here to bring the rifle to a ready position, you simply grab the forend, grab the pistol grip, and put the rifle however you need to. Okay? It's very comfortable and very easy to do. Sometimes we also see this, cradle carry. You can be grabbing the pistol grip or simply grabbing the magazine. My good friend Sonny Pazikas, former Spetsnaz, he told me that the Russians carry the rifle like this a lot. From here, it's very simple to bring the rifle to a firing position. Simply, obviously you have to grab the pistol grip. Your support hand simply points toward where you want the rifle to go. So if I want to move my rifle in that direction, my support hand points in that direction. The rifle simply comes up. Okay, so there are slung positions, there are ready positions, and there are also administrative carry positions. It's important you get familiar with all of them so that you can deploy your rifle no matter what situation you find yourself in. Next thing we're going to work on is snap shooting. All right. Now, there's two things that we need to understand before we really get into the meat of what this is all about. Number one is the offset of the sights to the bore, and number two is operating the trigger. Let's look at each one of those individually. Mark, go ahead and sight in right on the bad guy there and put a round on board. Okay, go ahead and put it on safe and sling it. Let's go take a look and see what happened. Okay, this is the hit right here. Mark, why don't you bring your rifle up and show me exactly where you were aiming. Okay, so you were aiming up in this area?
Yes.
And the shot is down here. All right, now Mark is a good shot. What happened there? Bring the rifle back up. Remember the offset that I talked about. Sighting is up here, barrel is down here. We're looking at a couple of inches. So although certainly this would ruin his day if he gets shot in the chops with a 7.62 by 3.9, still we need to understand for various reasons of cover and so on that there's an offset between the sighting and the actual impact of the round at the close ranges that we're talking about. All right, let's talk about the trigger reset. I've got my finger on the trigger. All right, I'm beginning to press. Now I've got a good sight picture at this point and so on if I were really shooting. I press the shot. Now what most people do at this point is their finger flies off the trigger, they lose control of the rifle, they miss the shot, and they wonder, hey, what happened? The rifle's inaccurate. No, it's not inaccurate, you're just a poor shot. You hold the trigger back on recoil. The weapon will cycle, reload itself, etc. Now, what have I done in the meantime? I've held the trigger back on recoil. When I'm ready to shoot again, I release it as far as that sound will tell me. That's the weapon resetting itself for another shot. I can press again. Weapon resets itself, and I can do that until I run out of ammunition. Okay? That's the way to operate these triggers. All right, let's work through some snapshots. Now what Mark is going to do is he's going to shoulder the rifle from various ready positions. He's going to work some different ones. As the rifle touches his shoulder, he's going to put his finger on the trigger and he's going to prep the trigger. All right? A lot of times people are afraid to touch their triggers. Listen, you want to be a good shot, you can't be afraid of your trigger. You have to understand your trigger and you have to make it work for you instead of against you. All right, so the first command is just going to be up. When I say up, Mark is going to bring the rifle up, prep the trigger and wait. Next command is going to be press. That's self-explanatory. Mark is going to put a shot right in the bad guy's face. Now he's aiming up a little higher to take advantage of this offset situation we spoke about. All right. When the rifle fires, I want you to focus on Mark's trigger finger. He's going to hold that trigger back on recoil. He's going to ride the trigger on recoil, not let it fly off. The next command is going to be reset. He's going to allow that trigger to reset. So he's going to control his trigger. All right, you ready? Okay, here we go. Up. Press. Reset. Recover. Okay, very nice. Let's do it again. Different ready position. Ready. Up. Press. Reset. Very nice. Recover. Different ready position. Up. Press. Reset. Recover. Very nice. Put it on safe, sling it up. Okay, very good. Snapshots are really good for 50 yards, 25 yards, even 15 yards. But as you saw, they take a little bit of time. So when we're inside of 15 yards, we start getting closer, more into the real close and ugly CQB envelope, we want to take shortcuts. Now, one of my instructors, Randy Harris, out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, kind of came up with a name for this. He called it the Caveman EOTech. There are a lot of people that'll mount EOTech optics on here because they're very easy to see. You know, if you don't have the resources to do that, you can use this technique. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the rifle up to my shoulder, and as soon as this front sight assembly appears to me superimposed on the target, I'm good to go. Again, I'm not looking to center punch his little button on his shirt or anything like that. I've got a big slab of meat that I can shoot. It's a very easy target, and I've got a lot of margin for error. Subsequently, I can go very fast, all right? So basically, from ready position here, okay? I'm not using my rear sight at all. As soon as I see this superimposed on his chest, I'm good to go. Now, if you look at that target, it may not win me a prize at a competition or anything, but you know what? Every one of those shots is going to leave a mark. Every one of those shots is going to cause some bleeding, and it's going to help me to win the fight and him to stay down. Okay, let's look at something else. This is for when things are very close. You weren't planning to be here, but there you are. Think of this in terms of like the airbag in your vehicle. You don't get in the car in the morning and say, I'm going to test the airbag today. It's there in case everything you've planned goes wrong. That's what this technique is for. It's called the underarm assault. It was invented by Rex Applegate, and in World War II it was taught to the gentlemen that defended our freedom in Europe and in the Pacific. And basically it involves bringing the rifle up under your arm, tucking it in with your arm nice and strong, and firing from the center line. Now, it's important that the rifle be in the center line of your body, more or less in line with your nose. Now, these are, you know, some points that if you were to take a class, we would develop them further, but just understand, you shoot from your center line. Many times it starts with the rifle up here in high port. You're running to get in position. At the last minute, a bad guy pops up, and you basically move into position and shoot from here without shouldering the rifle. All right? Basically, it looks like this. Okay guys, next thing we're going to talk about is the ambidextrous use of the rifle. Some people call it bilateral, but I can't bring myself to use any word with bi in it. Anyway, all martial arts, no matter what they are, they teach the right side, they teach the left side. The only martial art that doesn't do that is shooting. We need to change that. There's plenty of times for tactical reasons, for your reasons you might be injured, whatever the case, where you might need to shoot from the other shoulder. You'll really see the advantage of this when we start shooting on the move in the close-range gunfighting environment. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to shoot from the right shoulder and the left shoulder. Now, I call this a transfer. I differentiate that from transition. Transition to me means going to a secondary weapon. So we're transferring from one shoulder to the other. Now, some points that we want to be aware of, okay? Now I'm up here shooting, that's fine. When I make a partial transfer, what I want to do, my hands remain where they are. I simply change the position of the buttstock on my shoulder. I'm going from right shoulder to left shoulder. Now this is going to facilitate me taking a left-handed corner or moving off to the left without having to back up, okay? I can fire a shot very easily here using that caveman EOTech principle that we talked about earlier. This is a partial transfer. Now when I make a full transfer, it's important that the hand move forward to the magazine first to support the rifle before the other hand comes back to the pistol grip. The reason is simple. If this hand comes back to the pistol grip, the rifle will tend to fall out of your shoulder, okay? Not something that's good. So what we do is we go from partial transfer, the hand moves up to the magazine, the hand switch positions. I move to the other shoulder, the hand moves up to the magazine, the hand switch positions. So the order is butt, magazine, pistol grip. Butt, magazine, pistol grip. All right, now, when you're going to the left side, if you're not a left-handed shooter, it's important that you avoid this. All right, this is akin to when you're shooting left-handed with a pistol, wrapping around the back. We advise students very careful of that because, for obvious reasons, it's going to hurt. Okay, with the rifle, it's the same kind of situation. We don't want to have the thumb up in here like this. So what we tell you is, usually on AKs you have a couple of rivets here. Use that as a tactile reminder of where your thumb needs to be. Okay, very simple. Now I'm going to do the process dry on target here because we have another camera that's getting that angle, and obviously we don't want to endanger the cameraman. We'll do it in a minute here live. All right, so we're up on target. Now you get in a nice fighting position, not one of these sideways kind of bullseye type things. Okay, point in. Partial transfer. You notice my hand, wherever it is, it's going to move to the magazine. That's going to facilitate this process. Here, partial transfer, full transfer. Partial transfer, full transfer. All right. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to take that skill that we just practiced and we're going to get it on the move. Anytime that you're in a CQB environment, unless you have the initiative in the fight, in other words, you're starting it, you need to be getting on the move here. You need to be getting off the X, because if you're not starting it, the other guy is starting it, which means he's already shooting at you. All right, so what we do is in the CQB environment, the close range gunfighting environment, if you will, everything we do is on the move. Now, a lot of guys will tell you you need to walk a certain way, walk this way, walk that way. Listen, everybody's been walking since they were little kids. You know how to walk. You don't need to learn how to walk. So all we're going to do is we're going to take the rifle and we're going to incorporate it into the platform that you already know how to move from one point to the next. The drill is going to be very simple. I call it pacing. All right. You know, I'm starting off here. There's my target. I'm going to pace in this direction, very casually, very normal walk, and then I'm going to pace back in the other direction. All right, and I'm going to be walking back and forth. Those of you who are married and you've waited for your wives outside of shoe stores, you already know this drill. Okay, so here we go. Okay, very casual, very relaxed. All right, let's take that skill set that we worked on and put it all together. Basically what we're talking about is getting off the X, moving offline. Now, when I teach this in class, I use a clock analogy to help students visualize exactly what I'm talking about. So you, the viewer, are at my 12 o'clock directly in front of me. You're the perspective of where my adversary would be the bad guy. Directly behind me is 6 o'clock. Now, if I'm being shot at and I move straight ahead, what am I changing? Nothing. I'm basically testing the capability of his round. No matter how strong I am, no matter how armored up I am, I'm going to get shot. All right. If I move backward, no matter how fast I am, I'm not as fast as a rifle round. So basically what I'm looking at is moving off of this 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock line, which is your line of fire. All right? That leaves me the right side of the clock and the left side of the clock. On the right, we have basically a forward diagonal, lateral movement, and rear diagonal. On the left side of the clock, we have the same thing, forward diagonal, lateral movement, and rear diagonal. To facilitate teaching the point here, we use the 1 o'clock, the 3 o'clock, and the 5 o'clock on my right, the 11 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 7 o'clock on my left. All right? Now, it doesn't mean that you can only move in these lines of motion. Absolutely not. These are there to help you understand the point that I'm trying to make. All right? So let me talk you through this, exactly what I'm going to do, and then we'll go from there. All right? So I'm here with my rifle. I'm moving into position, and all of a sudden an adversary pops up, levels his rifle at me, and is about to begin shooting. If I stay here and simply bring my rifle up and shoot, we're both going to fire about the same time. All right? The chances of both of us getting hit are real high. I don't want a tie. I want to shoot him without getting shot myself. All right? So let's look at these different lines of motion. As I'm moving to the 1 o'clock, I'm going to shoulder the rifle as I get off the X. Here. All right? I'll take as many number of steps as I need to in a fight. For training purposes, in a class, we usually do 3-4 steps max. All right? The next line of movement will be to the 3 o'clock, directly on my right here. All right? Again, the adversary presents himself, I move offline, and I shoot this way. All right? You notice that I'm keeping the rifle on target as I'm moving offline. I'm not doing anything unusual, no sidestepping or any of these weird things. Walk normal. All right? If I took a student and I put him in front of a target, and I said, all right, I'm going to shoot that target right through you if you don't get out of the way. Not that I ever do this, but just for illustration. If that happened, he would be very motivated to move off that target spot. He wouldn't be doing any sideways stepping or groucho walking or any of this weird stuff that sometimes rifle instructors teach. He would move just as God intended him to move. He would step off and run off the X. So that's what we want you to do with your rifle. All right, we've addressed the number 1 and the 3 o'clock, or the 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. The 5 o'clock is next. All right, I'm here. I realize my adversary is coming up. This may be the only avenue of escape available to me, so I move in that direction and I shoot with my rifle this way. All right, again, what I'm using is that Caveman EOTech on the front sight that we talked about. All right, that's the right side of the clock. Now I've got the left side. This is a little bit more complicated. Like I said, we don't want to be backing up like this. If I back up, there's a good chance that I'm going to fall down. We've seen it happen in force on force repeatedly. So to avoid backing up and to facilitate our movement as well as our response to the bad guy, we developed the issue of the transfer of the shoulders. All right? If I'm moving to my 11 o'clock, which is left forward diagonal, as I step offline, I bring the rifle up this way and make the transfer of the hands as I continue moving. Next would be the 9 o'clock. I do it exactly the same way. I step offline, there's a partial transfer, there's a full transfer as I continue moving. The last one is the 7 o'clock. This one's a little bit challenging, but you can still make it work very well. Now what we found was that making the partial transfer as we move to the 7 o'clock was problematic. So what we do is we just go right into a full transfer. All right? As I see a need to move to the 7 o'clock, I move the rifle all the way over and move offline as I get off the X. Okay? Now let's look at that from the perspective of an actual bad guy bringing his rifle up to bear on me and then me moving off the X. We'll still do it dry and then we'll do it live fire for you as well. Okay, we're going to talk about reloading the AK. You know, there's a lot of discussion out there about what to do with these magazines and so on. Listen, the first thing I'll tell you is if you're inside close range environment, close range gunfighting environment, or CQB as some people call it, don't worry about reloading the rifle. Transition to your pistol. We've done tests in rifle classes where we've got guys, very, very fast reloaders, using ready mags and all sorts of attachments and things on the rifles. You know what? Even the slowest guy drawing his pistol out of the holster still beats him. All right. So if you are inside pistol range when you run out of ammunition, go to pistol. Don't bother trying to reload the rifle. Okay. Now let's discuss reloading this rifle. All right. This right here is the heart of your weapon. Okay. If you get rid of these magazines and you don't have any more, what is this? It's a single shot self-ejecting baseball bat. Okay. So, you know, take care of your magazines. Now, I'm not telling you that you want to risk your life to save a magazine, but don't make it a default to drop your magazines on the ground. That's what I see go on in a lot of rifle schools. You know why? Because it's easy to tell a student, when you're out of ammo, take the magazine, throw it away, get another one. You know, if you do that constantly, all day long, in a battlefield environment or in a in extremis environment like Katrina or the LA riots or something like that, at the end of the day, this is all you're going to have. Okay? Magazines are precious. Hang on to them if you can. All right? So let's talk about reloading with the understanding that we're going to try and retain these magazines if we can. All right? All right. Now the first thing is, if I'm up here shooting and I need to reload, okay, I can't really see what's going on downrange very well here, and I don't have the leverage necessary to reload here. I mean, I suppose I could, but it's much easier doing it a different way. Consider also that you're probably going to have to be moving from point of cover to point of cover or what have you while you're reloading. I haven't met anyone yet that can do the 100-yard dash with the rifle mounted like this. All right? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to bring the rifle up into our line of sight like this. It's the same thing we do with our pistols. This way I can keep track of what's going on in front of me with the bad guys, and I can use the magazine with leverage and everything else while I'm keeping track of what's going on downrange. All right? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the rifle up and I'm going to extract this magazine and bring it out. I'm going to secure it in my dump pouch. All right? I'm going to reach inside. I'm going to grab a fresh magazine. I'm going to insert it in the rifle. Now the way I do it is like this. I grab the magazine and let me bring the hand on the other side of the sling, and I put my knuckles right at about where the forend is. This will give me an automatic index to rock the magazine back. This is the motion that I have to do to make sure that this magazine is seated in place. All right? Now the next thing that you want to do is take that hand, bring it underneath, hit the bolt handle, and work it straight back. Okay, so from here to here. Some guys like to do it this way, over the top. That's acceptable too. It really doesn't matter. You can even reload and use your primary hand if you want to. It doesn't make any difference. All right? I personally like to come underneath and hit it this way. Okay? So the reload, let's look at it again. Okay? In smooth motion. Okay? Let's look at it again a little bit faster. That's the way I want you to reload your AK. Very simple, minimal motions, it gets the job done. All right? Real quick, I want to talk about my gear. A lot of times guys will come to rifle class, they'll be wearing a chest rig and, you know, a tactical vest and all kinds of stuff. Basically all this is just it's a rifle fighting bag. The cool thing about it is I don't have to put it on. I could use it without the attachment points here, just as a shoulder bag. With these attachments put away, you know, what does it look like? A diaper bag, basically. Good heavens, a tactical diaper bag. Anyway, it holds enough magazines. I've got a trauma pouch up front, some other survival goodies back here. When I grab the rifle to go fight with it, I can grab this and throw it on my shoulder. We've sold a lot of these to folks that are working in dangerous areas that need to keep their equipment handy but not be wearing it all the time for administrative reasons. They can keep all their fighting gear in one bag, and when it comes time to grab and go, everything's in the right place. They can deploy it very, very quickly. Next thing we're going to talk about is the after-action assessment. Many times in shooting training, what guys will do is they fire their shots. As soon as the last shot's fired, everything relaxes. All right? You need to remember that just because you fired a couple rounds doesn't mean the fight is over. All right? There's certain things you need to be aware of and you need to assess immediately afterward. Now, these can happen very quickly, in thought only maybe, but the process needs to be there. Think of it as a tactical triage of sorts. All right? 5 things you need to do. Number 1, make sure the bad guy you shot is down. All right? Just because he fell down, he might have slipped on a banana peel or something. Who knows? Make sure he's no longer a threat. All right? I leave that to your imagination. All right? Number 2, make sure that his friends aren't coming to help you. So you need to check the area to your right and to your left. Number 3, check the area behind you. Many times in training, they address that with lip service only, but they never actually do it. Okay? So you're checking the bad guy, you're checking the immediate area in front of you, and number 3, you're checking the area behind you. All right? At this point, you've established pretty much 360-degree security. Nobody else is shooting at you. You don't have anybody else to shoot at. Next thing you need to do, you need to start thinking about your weapon. Reload it. Now, obviously, if you only fired 1 shot, you don't need to reload it, but you need to ask yourself about the status of the weapon. If you've done a good amount of shooting, this is the first opportunity you have, go ahead and reload it. All right? And the final thing is you want to do a quick first aid check. When you're in a fight, you have a lot of adrenaline flowing through your system, and you may have taken a hit, maybe a peripheral hit, and not even realize it. All right? So we want to do a quick self-check just to make sure that we're okay. It's an additional skill set that you might want to investigate in. What happens if you have taken a shot? Wouldn't it be nice to know how to give yourself a little bit of self-first aid to keep yourself from bleeding to death right there? All right? So I'll talk you through what it looks like. I'll go ahead and do it dry, and then we'll go ahead and do it live. All right, if this is my bad guy over here, all right, let's say I just shot him a couple of times. Bap, bap, bap. Very nice. Okay? Now, I look over the top of the rifle and look at my bad guy. If I shot him, he would be on the ground. All right, hopefully. All right, so I verify. I ask myself, did I hit him and did it work? If the answer is yes, I move on to step B. If the answer is no, I can make it so. All right, next thing I do, I look to my left and I look to my right. Now I'm scanning. A lot of times you have guys that'll teach you to look left and right. If you look to your left and there's a bad guy there and the rifle hasn't been oriented toward where you're looking, you're going to have to move that rifle there in the first place. So why not do that to begin with? All right, so I like to work it this way. I look to my left and I look to my right. Wherever my eye goes, the rifle follows. Very nice. Next thing I'm going to check is the area behind me. Now, we might have good guys, we might have bad guys, we might have, people that are in between, undecided. I don't want to routinely cover people with my muzzle if I can avoid it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to position Sul, which is just like this. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to step into this area here. I'm going to step forward and I'm going to check the area behind me. Now I'm in a position where I could respond and shoot if I need to, okay? And then I'm going to get right back on my bad guy and make sure that nothing has changed, okay? Now the interesting thing that I want you to explore is your peripheral vision. I could be here in position Sul and I could exploit the peripheral vision around me. Most people, when they're scanning, they stand up tall and they look out right through the center of their eyes. All right, what I want you guys to do instead is to bend down a little bit and bring your chin down like you're a fighter. All right, so you're looking out through the tops of your eyes instead of through the middle of the eye. You'll find that you gain about 3 feet to either side by looking through the tops of the eyes rather than through the middle of the eyes. It enhances your peripheral vision considerably. Take advantage of that. It's a natural thing. You don't have to spend any money on it. I just gave it to you, okay? After you've done a 360 check, you get back on your bad guy, re-verify that nothing has changed, you work on your reload, all right? And the final thing after you work your reload is you bring your visual focus in to make sure that you haven't been shot, okay? You look at your wrist, you go to your elbow, you go to your shoulder, across your chest to the other shoulder, to the elbow, and then to the wrist, okay? In the meantime, you're also looking at the ground in front of you, your legs, and so on. If you see red, that's a bad sign. You need to look further, all right? Now let's go ahead and do this live. All right, we're going to talk about reactive manipulations with the AK rifle. Basically, what we're talking about is what happens if the rifle malfunctions. Look, very few times are you going to see the AK malfunction. However, anything man-made can break. Same thing for the AK. All right, so we're going to address what to do if that happens. The main thing that you want to remember, the deciding factor of what you do is going to be what distance are you from the threat. Are you within pistol range or are you outside of pistol range? If you're 10 feet away or 10 yards away from your adversary, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be trying to fix the rifle. You don't have time. Things are moving very fast. So instead, if you're inside pistol range or in the CQB environment, you want to get rid of the rifle and transition to pistol. That's going to be the fastest thing. We've proven it. We've tested it. If it wasn't so, I'd be doing something different. Inside of pistol range, go to pistol. We'll talk about what you do outside of pistol range in a minute here. Mark is going to demonstrate this. Now, we're very big on ambidextrous shooting from the left shoulder, shooting from the right shoulder. So we train transitions from those two situations as well. All right, Mark, it's all you. Okay, that went very easy, very smooth. You see, we're trying to simplify everything as much as possible. It's real easy to do with the AK. Mark is going to do the same thing now, but with the rifle in the left shoulder. All right? Okay, Mark, nice job. You see, this stuff is too easy to be tactical. Okay, we talked about if the AK malfunctions and you're within pistol range, go to your pistol, don't do anything with the rifle, all right? But if you're outside of pistol range, you're more intermediate range maybe, or in a supported position behind cover, what have you, it's a better option to fix this because you can fight better with this than you can with your pistol, okay? So let's talk about how to fix the AK. Now, AKs are very reliable. Anything man-made can break. This is no different. If the AK stops working, 90% of the time, it's simply because you ran out of ammo, okay? There are, however, other malfunctions that could take place. Nevertheless, we can fix all of these with one very, very simple maneuver. The same reload that we worked on earlier is going to fix our malfunctions, all right? So anytime the AK stops working, solution number one is reload the rifle. Magazine out, secure it, new magazine in, run the bolt. Magazine out, magazine in, run the bolt. If you want to shorthand it, magazine, bolt. Very simple. All right? So I bring the rifle up, I try and shoot, click, it doesn't work, very nice. Magazine out, secure it, new magazine comes out, goes in the rifle, run the bolt. This should fix your problem. All right? Now, occasionally it won't. If you have let's say a feedway stoppage, a type 3, this won't fix that problem. But if you take this magazine out, now you can hang on to this, you don't need to get rid of it. And run the bolt 2 or 3 times, that'll fix the problem, replace the magazine, run the bolt again, you're good to go. All right? Now, there's another malfunction that I want to talk about. 99% of the time, this progression will fix your problems. In other words, magazine, bolt, option number 1, magazine out, unload it completely, replace the magazine, and reload it again as the follow-up in case option number 1 doesn't work. I've seen probably in the neighborhood of about 250,000 rounds of AK ammo fired. I've seen this next malfunction twice. All right, so the percentages are real low, but I want to address it because I have seen it. Sometimes there will be a round that is trapped up between the receiver and the top cover. All right. Additionally, a fired case might get back into the trigger pack in the receiver. All right, and you can rack that bolt all day long. It's not going to fix the problem. What will fix the problem is you getting in here and taking the top cover off, all right, emptying out the problem and running the bolt one more time maybe. Now, don't forget to keep this with you because you'll need this. All right, you don't want to just drop this on the battlefield and move on. You can fire the rifle like this. As a matter of fact, not a big deal. All right. What this does is it keeps crud from getting into your receiver and so on, and it keeps you know, oil and debris from getting up into your face. All right. Now, one thing I want to point out real quick here, which is important because this will happen to some of you guys. All right. If I engage the safety while this rifle is in this condition, it's going to fire. Okay. There we go. Okay. You don't want that to happen to you by accident, so just be aware. Don't monkey with the safety until you have the top cover back on. All right? Very simple, and we'll get this reassembled real quick and we'll move on. All right, we taught you how to get off the X, how to move to the right or the left. Remember, the reason we're doing that is to get out of line of the bad guy's muzzle that's moving toward you. If you stand here and shoot it out with him, you're both going to get shot. There's advantages in moving off the line to the right or the left because it happens very quickly and you can use the environment around you. There are going to be circumstances, however, that maybe that movement's not available to you. You might be in a channelized area, hallway, or whatever. Without the ability to move to the sides, the only option is to move straight down. So we have a technique to take care of that. We learned this from our friend Sonny Pazikas, our Spetsnaz instructor, and this technique works really good. You start off here shooting. You realize that the bad guy's moving his muzzle toward you, so you just play straight down. Simply drop, hit him from here as well. You realize that his muzzle's still tracking you. You drop down and shoot him from here as well. Now, you're in a very low position, but you can get up very quickly. All you do is reverse and come back up to kneeling and back up to standing. One of the questions we get from a lot of our AK rifle students is, how do you shoot the rifle with the stock folded? Well, it's possible. You might want to ask yourself why, though. There might be a couple of reasons. One, you just didn't have the time to extend the stock. Another one, you might be operating in a vehicle where the stock extended would really be a detriment, not an advantage. And finally, you might be operating in a very close environment, such as maybe a very, very small room or something of that nature, where the advantage of such a compact weapon as this becomes crucial for you. Now, we borrowed a technique from the British SAS in terms of operating with the stock folded. They used to shoot their MP5s occasionally with the stock collapsed, and what they would do is they would grab the forend nice and strong and they would extend the forend out toward the target, pulling back slightly with the pistol grip. This created a very stable position where they could get rounds onto the bad guy. Now, you're not going to be firing headshots at 25 yards or anything like that with this, but hitting a torso at room distances, oh yeah, very, very easy. So let's take a look at it. There we go. We're going to talk about how to use cover. Cover is very important once you're outside in intermediate range and also in CQB as well. Cover will keep you alive because it'll keep bullets from hitting your body. Makes sense. Most people, when they use cover, they tend to get too close to it. Mark, go ahead and move up on that cover. Okay, now the problem with that is twofold. Number one, he doesn't know what's on the other side here. He's extending his rifle muzzle into unknown territory. If there's an enemy here, all he's got to do is grab Mark's muzzle and come around and shoot him. There's not a lot that Mark can do about it right now. The other point is that whatever cover you're using to hide behind, ostensibly it's to stop bullets, but sometimes the bullets are going to ricochet across it. If Mark is standing too close, those rounds can impact right into his face and body. All right. We've done experiments with different materials that are often discussed as cover, and we found that about 6 feet away seems to be the magic number. So even though Mark may rush up into this point of cover, as soon as he gets here and he feels safe, what he needs to do is take 2 big steps back. Go ahead. That'll put him about 6 feet away from this cover here and keep him safe from ricochets. Now the other thing that Mark needs to understand, come up a little closer, is that he needs to keep all of his body outside of this no man's land that is not covered by the item that he's using. One of the mistakes I see a lot is a lot of shooters like to shoot with their elbow flared up like that. If he takes a rifle around there, it's going to ruin his day. So it's important he keeps this down as well as he keeps his feet and knees and so on behind this imaginary line. Another point that's an important issue is the offset of the sights that we discussed earlier. Mark, go ahead and get a nice covered position there and get a good sight picture. Okay, now Mark has got a good sight picture on the target down range here and here, but remember we have that offset of the sights. So if he takes that shot now, that round is going to impact the cover. Problem with that is obviously it's not going to have the result down range that he's looking for, but also it may ricochet right back into him. It may launch some of the material of that the cover is made of back into his face. It's an undesirable thing, so just be careful of that. What he needs to do is as soon as he gets a good sight picture, he needs to make double sure that this is clear of this, and then he can go ahead and take that shot. All right? Very good. And he can shoot from standing position, kneeling position. It doesn't matter what position he's in, as long as he's taking advantage of those items that we discussed. Very good. Recover. One of the important skill sets you need to develop is the ability to deal with a corner. If you understand the corner, you understand all the tactics on how to move through a building. All right. Now, the most important thing is not to expose yourself to the unknown space. There's same issues that we were discussing when we were talking about using cover. This is going to involve the ability to shoot from both shoulders and so on. As I approach this corner, I want to have my rifle pointed in at what I think is the danger area. Safety off because I am in a fight and I'm expecting contact. All right. Now, I want to keep my elbows in tight. I want to keep my feet in tight as I take this corner very carefully, looking up and down as I go. Eventually, I'm going to come to the point of no return. I'm going to go ahead and take that corner. There's no point moving slowly through it because if there's a bad guy on the other end, going slowly through it is only going to expose me to his gunfire for a longer period of time. I want to take it quickly. So as I reach the point of no return, I move through and I take the corner. And I carry on with the rest of the problem. Just like people are either right-handed or left-handed, corners are the same way. Earlier we showed you how to do a right-handed corner as a right-handed shooter. Well, now we have a left-handed corner. What most people will do is they'll try to finagle their way around this corner one way or the other, keeping the rifle in their right hand and kind of rolling it over and exposing a little bit too much of their body. That's not going to get the job done, especially if there's an adversary on the other side ready to shoot you. So instead, as soon as you identify a left-handed corner, simply transfer the rifle like we showed you earlier. Remember, from here, the butt moves into the opposite shoulder and the hands change. So when I become a left-handed shooter to take this corner, I identify the corner, I change, and I take it very dynamically without having to overexpose myself to the adversary's gunfire. Next thing we're going to talk about is weapon retention. Now, one of the key points is, remember, we like the two-point sling. We don't like something attached to our body. The most important thing to remember with weapon retention is don't get into that problem. If you can avoid it by using good tactics and not allowing people to get close to you, all the better. If you can prevent it by as soon as you perceive that they're going to try and grab your weapon by using the weapon as an impact tool or what have you, even better. But best laid plans of everybody eventually fail. So if the adversary is able to get a hold of your rifle, you're going to wind up in a tug of war with this if you don't have something on board that'll take care of the problem. If you have a three-point sling on or some sort of sling where the weapon's attached to your body and your adversary grabs the rifle, if there's a big size disparity He's going to be swinging you around, bumping you into walls, knocking you into traffic, whatever the case is. You're going to have a hard time with this. So what we prefer to do, and again, this is worst case situation. We would rather not be in this, but then again, there it is. So I'm coming up to this problem here. For whatever happened, Mark grabbed a hold of the rifle, okay? Now, in a lot of weapon retention discussions, this is basically where it stops. And then the hero of the show is able to do all sorts of Jackie Chan-ish type stuff on a stationary bad guy. The reality is, if Mark grabs onto this, he's going to start pummeling the hell out of me or pulling the rifle away. There's going to be some action following this up. So what I want to do is, I want to separate myself from this. I'm going to go ahead and let him have the rifle. Now, Mark doesn't have the rifle in a way that he can shoot me with it. It's basically a contact weapon. It's going to take him some effort to turn the rifle around in his hands so that he can use it to shoot me with. Now, that amount of time I can use to move offline and take care of the problem. Something like this, for example. All right, Mark comes up, grabs a rifle, starts pulling it. Very simple solution. We're going to talk about how to use the AK rifle as an impact weapon. Many times, because of the situation you find yourself in, you may not need to shoot an adversary, you may not want to for whatever reason, or you just may not have time to. If that's the case, you can use this weapon to strike with. Remember from our discussion earlier of all the different points and edges and things on this rifle, these are very beneficial to you in this type of situation. The first thing, if you can change the positioning of your primary hand from the pistol grip to the small of the stock, this will be beneficial to you. If you can't, you can't, but again, it's optimum to grip the rifle like this, okay? Now, we're going to look at a number of different angles of impact with this rifle. We're going to keep it very, very simple. We can make this complex, make it a more in-depth and thorough study, but for right now, we're going to keep it very simple so you can learn this quickly. We're going to divide this up into 5 different strikes. Basically, we're going to look at descending diagonal from the right side, descending diagonal from the left side, rising diagonal from the right, rising diagonal from the left. It could also be horizontal, and then a direct thrust. So basically what we're looking at is this. The bad guy's in front of you. Here's a number 1. Here's a number 2. Now you're striking across the face or the neck with this part of the rifle, okay? Number 3 this way, number 4 this way, number 5 straight in. This could be delivered to the body or the face, okay? And we combine those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you have those 5 strikes understood, in order to develop mental fluidity in their application, we want to combine the lines. We can combine them very complex, combining 5, 6 different lines, or keep it very simple and just do 2 at a time. We borrow this concept from our friend Tom Sotis of the Amok knife system. It involves combining 2 lines together. Now we have 5 total. 5 times 5 is 25, so there's 25 combinations that are possible. For example, we have the number 1. We follow it with a second number 1. We do the number 1 again, follow it with a number 2. We have a number 1, we follow it with a 3. We have a number 1, follow it with a 4. We have a number 1, we follow it with a 5. That's the number 1 side. And then we have a 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5. 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 5. What do you think is next? Right. 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5. 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5, 4, 5, 5. All right, let's look at a couple of applications for that. Mark has got a tomahawk, and his mission is going to be to come and hit me on the head with it. Now, most people would say, well, you have a rifle, just shoot him. I'd love to do that, but You have to remember, because you shoot somebody doesn't mean that they're going to cease to exist right there and then. So if Mark has got the tomahawk and I see him and he managed to get this close to me and he's coming in with the strike and I hit him, boom, okay, now I shot him, but guess what? This is still going to make impact with me. So we both might die. When we're at arm's reach like this and he's got a contact weapon, I really do need to deal with a contact weapon first before I can think about shooting him. So we look at those lines of movement with the AK that we talked about earlier. Now, we're going to work this very, very slow. Think of the concept. This is a real AK. Mark has got a tomahawk there, so we don't want to hurt each other. If you wanted to get fake training equipment and dress up in a mask and body armor and all that sort of thing, you can go at it as hard as you want to. For right now, this is just a demonstration to show you what lines are possible in this type of situation. All right, so I'm moving through an environment here. Mark jumps up. He's going to hit me with a tomahawk. Okay, freeze in place. Now I've got to deal with this. What line of movement seems to apply the best here? Very simply, this one right here. I catch the tomahawk and actually his arm and knock it out of the way. There it is. Now what am I open to right here? Bam, there's a number 5 right into his face. Follow it up with this, straight across. Now I can pull back and use the rifle as it was intended and shoot him. Okay, very simple to do. We've done point shooting with the AK, we've done snap shooting with the AK, all for close range CQB environments. What we're going to look at now is deliberate shooting at intermediate to outer distances. Again, remember the AK is good for about 300, 350 yards within its battle sight 0. With a little bit of understanding about the trajectory of your round, you can extend it out a little bit further. Now, when we're working at intermediate distances for deliberate shooting, sometimes we may have to fire from an offhand standing position, but whenever we have the opportunity, we want to get down lower to the ground. Again, it may be because you're using cover, some sort of concealment, but also because supported positions are going to help your shooting by stabilizing you a little bit more. Let's look at kneeling position first. Mark, whenever you're ready. Now, one of the things we practice is getting into the supported position quickly. Points for the kneeling position. Number 1, there should be about a 90-degree angle between one leg and the other. Kneeling position forms a tripod. So Mark's left foot, his knee, and his right foot are in contact with the ground, and his rear end is in contact with his right heel. This affords him a great deal of stability. He wants to keep his elbow slightly down, not this flared out Camp Perry type shooting. Keep it slightly down, whatever's natural. Wants to keep his back relatively straight. And another important issue is that his forearm and his shin should be relatively aligned so he's got bone support and he doesn't have the rifle wobbling around. From this position, he can fire a very accurate shot at whatever distance he needs. Go ahead and recover. Okay, very good. Now, let's look at the next one, squatting position. The one drawback to kneeling position is that Mark's knees are in contact with the ground. If he has the opportunity to put knee pads on and all that kind of stuff, that's all well and good, but what if you don't have time to do that? I remember one time we were working a SWAT entry, and one of my partners took a knee right on top of a broken beer bottle. So I've always looked at kneeling position with a great deal of concern. It's valuable and it's important that you learn it, but understand that if the surface you're working on has a lot of debris and broken material on it, you may want to choose an alternate position. One very good one is squatting position. Basically, Mark is standing there. All he's going to do is he's going to drop down into a deep squat. All right? Now, again, Mark's back is relatively straight. You see that both of his feet are in contact with the ground. A lot of times, if guys don't have flexibility in the lower legs, their heels tend to raise. So you're in a squatting position, balanced on your toes. That is not good. You want your feet flat on the ground and your rear end as close to the ground as possible. So your hamstrings are literally resting on your calves. Both of Mark's elbows are inside his knees. He's trying to keep this one as close to straight in line with his legs as possible, as much as is physically possible. Again, nice compact position. Nothing is touching the ground except his feet. From here, he can spring out very quickly if he needs to. Recover. There it is. Very nice. Okay? Those are very good intermediate positions. You get into them quickly, you get out of them quickly. The next one in line that we're going to examine is sitting. All right, there's various forms of sitting depending on your physical characteristics. Sitting is a lot more stable. It's a lot harder to get into and a lot harder to get out of. Show us sitting, Mark. Okay, basically Mark drops down. Now this is one form of sitting. The legs are opened, the elbows are on the inside of the legs or on top of the knee, just like a kneeling position. You notice his profile is much lower. If you need to take a shot in, let's say, high grass or something like that, this might be a problem. All right, very stable. Now he can change the position of his feet depending on what his personal needs are. He can keep them out like that. He can bring them in and cross them, you know, like he's sitting at a campfire. All right, either way, very comfortable. Okay, go ahead and recover. All right, very good. You notice that as Mark recovered, what didn't he do? He didn't let go of the rifle. All right, he figured out a way to get his legs under him and stand up. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you maintain control of the rifle. That's the important thing. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is prone. Prone is very good for super long range shots. If you need to shoot somebody at, let's say, 350, 400 yards or something like that, and you wanted to extract the ultimate amount of accuracy from your rifle and your cartridge, and the topography allowed you to do it, you'd want to take a prone position. Mark, whenever you're ready. Okay, notice he dropped down very smoothly. He didn't, you know, drop down in a way that it would hurt him or anything like that. Also, he didn't use his rifle to break his fall. A lot of guys are teaching that now, and although an AK will take it, there's no reason to abuse your rifle. All right, important points. As I'm standing here, if I was Mark's adversary, you know, and Mark was shooting from beyond cover, I want to look for this foot sticking out from behind cover. That's a mistake a lot of guys make, okay? So you want to be careful with that. Now, Mark can have his knees bent or straight. It doesn't make any difference. It's helpful if he keeps both his heels down when he's doing this first position, all right? But in any case, either way works fine. His elbows are both on the ground. His hip region is on the ground. He's elevated just far enough so that he can breathe. Now, an alternative to this prone position is he can get down lower and use the magazine as a monopod. He just dropped down about 3 more inches. Now, a lot of guys don't think that this is valid or important, but when people are shooting at you from the other side, you're going to want to get as low as you can, and this saves you a little bit of space there, about 3 inches or so. Mark, go back to standard prone. Okay, so Mark is about up here. Go ahead and drop down and use the magazine. So it's substantial, and that may make the difference between surviving this problem or getting hit. This is also very accurate, and well, you saw the abuse that an AK magazine can take, so this is not really a concern. Okay, recover. Very good. I want to thank you for buying this DVD. I hope you have as much fun watching and training as we did in making it. I want to thank Paladin Press for putting up with me once again. I want to thank Suarez International Staff Instructor Mark Kwan for helping in the demonstrations. I want to thank Jim Fuller, the maker of these fine rifles and Rifle Dynamics. I want to thank Dan Agakian for contributing the Sneaky Bags Rifle Operator Bag. And I want to thank you once again. Hopefully we'll get to train again soon.